Welcome to today's episode, brought to you by the Women in Medicine Summit, a transformational CME conference happening September 13th to 14th at the Drake Hotel in Chicago. Engage in leadership programming, learn negotiation skills, receive on-site coaching and mentoring, and see who will win this year's I Stand With Her awards. This year, we're excited to offer unique programming that includes a special session on how using improv comedy can bring fun back into medicine. We also have financial sessions tailored to help you navigate the complexities of personal and professional finances. Discover ways to advance into leadership roles, combat burnout, and either reignite your love for your current role or find joy in a new career path. Don't forget our Friday evening gala, a highlight this year you definitely won't want to miss. Register now at womeninmedicinesummit.org and be part of the movement that is shaping the future of healthcare. Join us to network, learn, and celebrate the power of women in medicine.
When you hear the word lawyer, what's the first thought that runs through your mind? My guess is it's something about getting sued, a really large bill. The thoughts aren't exactly pleasant. Today's interview was truly a joy with, you guessed it, a lawyer. Amanda Hill is not your average lawyer, though. She is really cool and is certainly a doctor's advocate. She is a healthcare attorney in Austin, Texas. She worked for the U.S. government defending large hospitals before becoming general counsel for several large groups. And now she has her own law firm representing Texas physicians. She has worked with physicians and healthcare management her entire career, providing guidance, training, and counsel. Recently, Amanda launched Guard My Practice to try to prevent problems doctors were facing before they occurred and to help train and educate physicians about the business side of medicine. This company provides online courses on all kinds of topics that affect physicians to help them feel safe and protected, such as contracts, fraud and abuse, employment issues, partnership concerns, HIPAA, dealing with difficult patients, and more. As doctors, we understand the importance of preventative medicine. Have you ever considered that you may need preventative legal assistance? Instead of paying an attorney a really high rate per hour when you're in a jam, if you take Amanda's course, you could avoid the jam, save lots of money. She has so many pearls in today's episode. I am very excited to have the very first lawyer. We've had some doctor lawyers on the pod, but the very first lawyer on the podcast. And I only would have somebody here that I can attest to being truly an advocate and a friend of doctors. It is my pleasure today to have Amanda on the pod. Enjoy. Welcome to the Revitalizing Doctor podcast. We interview trailblazers in medicine that embody the Revitalize Women vision to empower women to innovate and influence medicine, to value authenticity, respect, and work-life harmony. We recognize the challenges in medicine, and we're committed to providing coaching-informed strategies to help you go from surviving to thriving. I'm very excited for this episode because it's not very often that me as a doctor, I get to speak to an attorney and ask all these questions that we have as doctors. So welcome, Amanda Hill.
Thank you. I'm super excited. Doctors are my whole world, so I appreciate the opportunity.
I want to start with a question that we usually ask doctors, but we're going to flip it for you. What is your attorney origin story?
That's a great question. So I went to law school to go be a federal judge. Like, I was determined I was going to be a U.S. attorney, federal judge, make sure that I could prosecute crime and then be the ultimate pillar of justice. And then my first job out of law school, I had to move to this small town and I couldn't find a prestigious job per se. And so there was an opening at the local VA hospital for an entry-level lawyer. So I worked for the VA right out of law school. And I tell you, the first time I started picking up medical records and reading the hen scratch, this is well before EMR, I decided I really enjoy this. I like working for doctors and helping defend them. And it was just something clicked. And 23 years later, here I am still defending doctors in a different way. But there was just something very magical about the fact that I felt like I was a part of the team. I was defending this physician that worked so hard and trained so much and now is being accused of something. And I could sort of step in and be the hero in that story. I loved it. So I've really enjoyed the partnership. I know a lot of my colleagues, they say, wow, doctors are really difficult to work with. I'm like, I don't find that the case. For me, of course, I'm an advocate for doctors, but it's been nothing but joyful to feel like I can help a doctor go from a really bad, terrible situation to something that feels like freedom.
That's amazing. So you worked at the VA, and then did you leave there and start your own practice right away or join another group of attorneys?
Well, I did a tiny stint on television between there, which was that's a whole nother story. It was very fun. I was on reality television, which is crazy that I took a time out of my life to go to New York and be on a reality show. But in any event, after that, I decided I want to move on to something outside the government. I was young. I had no kids. I was feeling bold. So I applied for the biggest medical group in town. And I literally cold called them and said, who's your lawyer? Because I think it should be me. And I went with a brochure, like a 3-prong brochure. How I would be a great lawyer for them. And they sort of stupidly hired me. And my life from then has just been a trajectory of like bold moves. And so I worked there for a long time in the private healthcare multi-specialty space. And then I left there and went to a nonprofit, FQHC. And then after that, I started my own firm. It took me a long time to sort of go on my own. I think I needed the experience. I needed the ins and outs. I needed to really get my feet dirty and feel that I understand the world that is healthcare and from many different angles. So I went government, private, nonprofit. And now for the past 8 years, I've run my own law firm and I will never go back. It's been really joyful to feel like I can take on the clients that I want. I love representing individual physicians, which a lot of lawyers don't. A lot of lawyers would love to have the hospital systems and the big groups. I like the little guys. Send me all your doctors, because to me, it's very empowering to feel like you can help a doctor when they're in a crisis get to the next place.
I love that story. And I do think there's a lot of parallels with doctors as well, that many of us come out of medical school and residency, and starting our own practice would be quite daunting because we still need to learn the business side and how different practices can work. So I see this trajectory with many of the physicians that we talk with too, that they take maybe a traditional group job or even work at the VA as a doctor. And after they've figured things out and really align their values, then they're ready to start their own practice. And they've also developed some economic stability, because I'm sure you can relate that when you do go out and start your own business and you're making your own money, you don't have that safety net of knowing that the paycheck's coming in on the 1st and the 15th. It changes things.
It does, man. It really does. It was scary for me as well. I mean, it took a long time to develop confidence. And I see that very much paralleled with physicians, right? You don't have the confidence to go out on your own, because when you're on your own, you are the expert. There's no colleagues to really check and say, hey, can I talk to you about this? Or can I banter about? It's just you and you're making the call. And it's very sort of, you're on a pedestal, you're on an island. It's just you in this small practice. And it can be very frightening. And I went out, this is crazy that I did this looking back, but I put in my resignation at the time because I had had it. The commute was an hour each way. I had 2 small kids. I'd gone through a divorce. So I was a single mom and I just was dying inside. The nanny was putting my kids to bed and I never had time with them. And I didn't have the time to do what I really wanted, which was cook and bake and garden and all this stuff that I had in my life that I felt it was enriching me. It was just stripping me. So I remember when I put that notice across the desk of my boss at the time, and I thought, I can't believe I'm doing this. This is insane. I don't have clients. I don't have a stockpile of money. I don't have rich parents. Like, I don't have anything. And I hustled and I did it. And I just went to lunches and met with every doctor that would talk to me and used all my contacts and just begged and pleaded for work. And now I'm extremely busy and can barely keep up. But my point is, sometimes you really do have to take the risk. And I've seen doctors do this successfully, and I've seen doctors that start on their own and just expect it to come, right? But you have to go in there and hustle. You have to put in the work. And there's, especially with payer contracts, right? There's a lag time, or the first couple of months, you're not getting paid anything, which is even worse because you have to wait for all that to be set up. So it's very scary. And I understand it because I jumped in without any real backing. But I know that the doctors, I believe in their mission and their heart, and they're going to make it. And many of them do because they believe so deeply that they can provide this service in a different way than in a big system. They have the autonomy to be able to practice medicine the way they want. And if you can get through a couple of months of a rough season and borrow some money and get a good bank loan, then you'll finally get on your feet again. I remember helping a vascular group. They started and they said, Amanda, we got nothing. We got no money for you. We don't even know what to do. And I ended up giving them some free legal help to get them on their feet. And now they're doing gangbusters. So it just takes the believing in yourself that you know you'll get there. And so a lot of what I do is motivating. These doctors are incredibly smart. They're not always great with business. And so if I can just guide them to make smart business decisions, then that's half the battle.
That is such an amazing story. And I'm working on my memoir right now, and it's finally come to me like what you're describing, how you were driving home and you're like, I can't do this anymore. And it's been described by many different authors. Brene Brown calls it the midlife unraveling. And I view that on the other side of it is the revitalization of your career. And to get to that revitalization requires an inflection point. It's this point where it's like, I can't go the same way. And the inflection point in and of itself doesn't mean you're going to have that revitalization or clarity. You need the inflection point plus the clarity to then go where you're supposed to be. And that's what you described there. You had the inflection point of, I can't do this anymore. And then you got that clarity that I'm really good at what I do. I have this unique gift and I know how I can give it to people. And I just love every podcast episode we do, I'm going to start calling it the revitalization moment. And that's what you described.
Well, one thing that was really interesting when I was going through that transition was I was so petrified that I wouldn't have health insurance. Like that was some magical barrier for me starting my own firm. I kept saying, I can't tell my husband, I can't go out on my own. I need health insurance. And I couldn't possibly muster all that goes into being on your own. Well, I'm remarried now. He wasn't my husband then. We were just dating. And I remember him just saying, really? That's the barrier? Like you can just go on the marketplace and like buy a policy. There is no barrier here. This barrier is in your mind. You are going to be great. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, you're right. These are made up stumbling blocks because you're just fearful. It's all fear-based. And if you can just knock down the fear and say, what is the worst that can happen? I start my own firm. I have a few clients. I'll look around. I can always get another job. But what's the worst that can happen? I mean, it's not the end of the world that you try this new thing. And I just remember thinking these big blocks of fear just started melting away, thinking that's not a barrier. Everything I would put up as a barrier, he'd be like, not a barrier. And you believing in yourself is absolutely the biggest part of it. To say, I know I can do this. I have done so many hard things. And if I get over those, if I can get through cancer, if I can get over divorce, if I can go back to work crying on the way to work and wipe my face, like the country song says, and put your lipstick on and get back in there, I can start my own law firm. And I just know so many doctors that are in the same boat. They're like, you know what? Like you said, this is the point. No more. There's a dividing line in my life. I will not just take another job and march in with my lunchbox and put my nose to the grindstone for somebody else. Like I want to be able to reap those rewards and I want to be the boss of my own life. And I'm telling you, once you make that decision, you'll never, ever go back.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Are you a physician mom with school-aged children feeling utterly exhausted? My friend Dr. Sheeta Shaffi invites you to take a little time this summer to join her in a small, intimate group for meaningful conversations. Dr. Shaffi is an emergency physician, coach, and mom to 8-year-old twins. She understands firsthand what you're going through. This isn't a pizza party or a yoga class. You'll meet for 2 one-hour sessions twice a month starting in July to help you move out of exhaustion, let go of mom guilt, and live a life you're not only proud of, but can truly enjoy. Connect with her on LinkedIn or Instagram at Sheeta Shaffi to learn more. Sheeta is spelled Shideh, and Shaffi is spelled Shafie. You can also check the show notes for a link so you can connect with her there as well. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to pivot to your legal practice, and then we're going to talk later about the Guard My Practice that you also offer doctors. In your experience working with doctors as their attorney, what would you say are the top 3? I'm sure you have top 10, but let's just focus on the top 3 issues that doctors come to you with.
Well, the first would be contract negotiations. They're always negotiating contracts, whether it's an employment law situation where they just say, hey, I have a new job. I want you to negotiate my contract. Or whether they're saying, I want to invest in something or form a partnership. And these documents look like Greek letters. I literally do not understand the words on these pages. Someone needs to help define and explain them to me. So contracts are number one. I review contracts every single day of my life. I could write them in my sleep. The second thing I do is probably doctors that got in trouble in some context, right? They got themselves into a bad deal. The government's calling them and there's an audit that went wrong. They have to fire a staff member and they're not sure how to do it. You know, anything where they're in trouble or there's a real tense situation at work and they think, I need a lawyer. And so I step in and try to calm the situation and review what happened. How do we find a solution to this problem? I am a problem solver first and foremost. So I draft and write their contracts and I help solve their problems. So that's a really big one because usually by the time they want to spend the money to hire me, something has gone wrong or something does not seem fixable. They've gotten themselves in some sort of really sticky situation that they might not think there's any way out of. They call me and then we work through it. I think I'm going to stick with those two.
Those two. Yeah. I mean, those are big baskets.
And getting them out of trouble. In fact, that's why I created these training courses on those two issues, because that's literally what I do every single day. I always say I'm like the red phone that doctors call. They like, you want a lawyer in your pocket? That's me for doctors. So they just call me 6 a.m., 10 p.m., whatever it is to say, I need your help. This thing has happened. And sometimes it's not a complete crisis. It's like, I need to terminate this medical assistant and then she's pregnant and we're not sure how sticky this situation is. Or looks like I signed this contract now. I don't know how to get out of it, but I really need to get out of it for these 3 reasons. And what do I do? Every email to me ends with like, help. What do I do? And so I guess in a way it does feel very mission driven to feel like you can help. I might have the answers to help you get through this. And then there is a small part of what I do, which is just counseling. It's like attorney and counselor at law. They refer to lawyers. And there's a lot of it, which is like, you're going to be okay. You're going to make it. I have doctors calling me all over the country. I can't represent them because I'm only licensed in Texas. In fact, just this morning, I had a vascular surgeon, cardiac surgeon, call me and she's going through a terrible employment case. And she was like, I just want to talk to you for a second about this. I feel so lost. I want everyone to have a person where they can call. And sometimes it's your lawyer. And yes, I charge for my time, but if it helps the doctor get through that wretched scenario to know that they can call and I can say, you're going to get through. There is an answer. There's a way through because the helplessness and the fear is what's driving a lot of doctors away from medicine altogether. Just that I don't want to deal with it. I cannot deal with this kind of stress. It's overwhelming. I feel underwater. There's no way out. And I had an ENT doctor and got into a terrible bind with a management company. Her little company was run by a management company that took total advantage of her. It was a 10-year agreement. There was no termination clause. They somehow wove in this voting trust to where they basically eviscerated all of her power. She came to me dejected, feeling helpless, feeling like she's going to spend the next 8 years of her life being controlled by this other group, and there was no way out. And I said to her, there's always a way out. Everything has a back door. Even if you have to blow the wall open, you're going to find your way through. It might be expensive, might take a little time, but don't ever feel like there are no solutions to this problem. There are always ways through it. And I think that in of itself is really empowering. Doctors are like, wow, okay, I can make it. Like, I'm going to pay my dues. I'm going to take the hits. I'm going to blow this wall down, but we're going to get through it. And man, it's really nice on that other side.
Listening to you have that energy just takes me back to when I had to hire an attorney for my divorce. And the first attorney I went to, I was young. I was in medical school, didn't have much money. I mean, we owned a place together, but I mean, looking compared to my life now and then, it really wasn't that complicated. And she scared the crap out of me. She was like, this is going to be terrible. You have so many shared assets, la, la, la. And I left the office scared, like even worse than I was when I came in. And something in me said, you got to find somebody that's got some gusto and that thinks they can solve this problem. So the next person I hired was like, oh, this is like very straightforward and this is what we're going to do. And I was like, thank God. But I'm so glad I found, and just listening to you, thinking about, I've been very, very fortunate so far in my career, but if we're in one of these trouble spots or even a contract, I don't want to have an attorney that's scaring me or making me feel bad. I want to have the words you're saying, an advocate.
Well, unfortunately, the way the system is set up is not really conducive to that, which I'm trying to break that mold. I feel like I'm the only person trying, but hey, here I am. But when you have a law firm set up with hierarchy where they have to make money on your problems, then problems are seen as great because the more problems that come in, the more money you get to generate for the firm. And so in a way, you don't want doctors to solve their own problems. You want doctors to continue to get into jams and so that they'll pay you to get out of those jams. Do you see why that's problematic?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to tell doctors like, well, guess what? I'm here if you make many, many more mistakes and you can just continue to pay me $500 an hour to help you get out of this jam. No, we have to learn to teach doctors not to sign these deals. We have to teach doctors how to negotiate basic premises so they don't have to send every single contract to their lawyer, which is counterintuitive, right? Because in a way, you don't make as much money as a lawyer if you teach people how to fish instead of just handing them fish. But in the long run of society, it's the only way that it's going to work. Because I like to think of all of our healers out there struggling. They are. The suicide rates are going up. The burnout rates are going up. Doctors are really struggling. And we can't just continue to throw fish at them and say, you're going to be fine. They're not fine. We don't help our healers by training them and giving them the tools that they need. We're not going to have any left.
Thank you for saying that. And you really hit the nail on the head. And now I want to talk about what you're doing with Guard My Practice, because this is so innovative. And we have many listeners that have leadership roles in medical schools and residencies and hospital systems. And now I see the vision that you've been side by side with clients in the trenches with them fighting these terrible situations. And there just gets to be, I would imagine it's akin to moral injury. You're seeing what's happening to them, and then you know that there's a better way out there. And I think that's what moral injury is, that you go to work and you're put in these situations and you're like, you feel that person's pain and you know it wouldn't have to be that way. So let's talk about that arc of your career now, going from being the attorney to what you're doing with Guard My Practice.
Well, I can certainly say it gives me a lot more inner joy. I love being a lawyer. Like, I love my clients. I love helping them. So that's still great. But there's something different about not selling them anything, right? You're just teaching them. You're saying, I want you to leave this hour or this course or whatever with more knowledge to help yourself. It's very empowering to give that to someone else. I used to say, I think it's just because I've had so many crazy near-death times in my life. So I'm very aware of my own mortality. And I've said once in a podcast, which sounds kind of morbid, but I don't want to die and just this body and this brain just goes into the earth and all of it is wasted. Because I have learned so much after doing this for 23 years that can really help doctors. We've got to put it in the hands of the young doctors that are coming out of residency and fellowship. Because there's so many nuggets of truth that we have to start teaching these young docs. Like, do not believe that you can work for nothing. And here are some situations that are so easy to fall into, and you're going to fall prey into this trap. Avoid them. Learn how, when the hair on the back of your head stands up, trust your judgment that this deal is probably suspect, right? Here's how to wade through the red lines and come up with the major points that you need to negotiate and look at your own worth as something that's valuable enough to fight for. These are lessons that I feel are absolutely essential to teach young doctors and early career physicians. And so I started this training with that in mind, right? How do I get that knowledge into the hands of doctors? And I've tried different mechanisms. I tried a membership model, a courses model. I'm really, though, think that fellows and residents and early career doctors, they need the help. And I'm just trying to figure out, like a Tetris board, how to put it in the right hands. Because I think that if we don't start teaching these things, healthcare is too complex. And what we can't do is to say, well, guys, just figure it out. Like, on one hand, at the beginning of the podcast, we talked about how empowering it is to start your own practice. But yet we're saying, but the regulatory hurdles are impossible, right? The reimbursement requires lots of contract negotiation. Good luck. And you've got to hire mid-levels that might steal your patients or other physicians that you might have conflict with. But I'm sure you'll just all figure it out because you're intuitive and business savvy, and you'll understand all of these complex regulations that lawyers on the healthcare front spend decades learning. That is an impossible recipe. We have to break it down and say, no, we don't expect you to know that. We've been doing this for a long time, right? I've been negotiating contracts for 2 decades. How could I possibly expect a doctor to know it overnight? So it's steps and tips and tricks. And, like, for example, when I tell a doctor, you have to slow it down. You have to understand you're not going to get all these edits. Here are the things that you need to focus on and fight for. It's like, aha, like, oh, that makes total sense. Yes, I was going about it wrong. But that doesn't mean they're a failure. How would you know? I've been doing this so long, I've developed the skill. Just like a doctor can read an EKG and it makes sense to me, it's always going to look like squiggly lines because I've never been taught. So we have to do synergy. Lawyers, doctors have to work together because there's just no way we're going to import all the legal knowledge inside of a doctor's brain and vice versa. So we really have to work to try to hit the highlights to make sure doctors are better equipped. This is a hard world in healthcare. And trust me, it's harder today than it was 20 years ago. Back in the day when you had a paper chart and HIPAA breach was like, oops, you faxed the wrong person. Not the end of the world. It's a completely different world now with everything being online, the risk of cybersecurity, hacking, all the dangers of Medicare regulations. That's all happened in the last couple of decades. So we've got to empower and give doctors tools, not to scare them, but to help them.
So would you view somebody that goes through the Guard My Practice curriculum at that point? It's never going to replace having an attorney, but it at least gives you the foundation to feel a little bit more prepared and savvy when you have issues come up, and maybe that they then know when they actually do need an attorney versus throwing everything at an attorney or waiting because they're so scared about the cost of hiring an attorney till things have really blown up.
You hit the nail on the head with that. Knowing when to go get legal counsel is half the battle. And if you want, like, for example, one of my courses is called Staying Out of Trouble, where I talk about the highlights of big areas that can get doctors in trouble and how to prevent that from happening. What if you're in a practice and you're like, I'm doing that. I'm doing that right now. I had no idea that was even a problem. Now I know to go to my lawyer and fix it so I don't later have an audit and it becomes a nightmare and a $500,000 problem. Or let's say that you watch my employment law, difficult people course, and you're like, oh, okay, I did not realize that having an employment manual and having some of these things in place can really help me. I'm going to go do that. And then I'm going to call a lawyer later if I need them to help me with this issue. But now I have more tools on my tool belt. So yeah, I think that one of the reasons for the course is to know when to get a lawyer involved. And also when you do go to a lawyer, you know what to ask. You're not like, I don't know. I literally have clients calling me and they say, hi, Amanda, I heard you give a speech. You sound really smart. I have no idea what's wrong with my practice. I don't even know if I have the right policies. Help. You have no idea of your weaknesses. You have no clue of why you're even calling me. And so that's a challenge, right? That's like me looking under all these rocks going, okay, well, let's start from the beginning. Send me all your contracts. Let's look at your policies. But to even have the course and the training to where you know what is a problem is really a big deal. And there's always going to be a role for us healthcare lawyers in the world. I just keep getting busier as a lawyer. But my goal and my dream would be for the training business to grow more and doctors to become more empowered so that they only hire lawyers when they truly need them.
Yeah, absolutely. I have this question. It's going to sound really silly, but I don't get to like talk to lawyers that often.
Yes, anything.
Why do we say the word lawyer versus attorney? Does it mean anything different?
They're interchangeable. It's kind of like doctor and physician. They're totally interchangeable. Sometimes it's just having another word so you don't say the same word over and over. Lawyer said this, your lawyer said this, and you just flip it to say attorney every once in a while. But yeah, they're completely interchangeable. And I'm super glad that just because we have a JD, which is technically a doctorate, I'm really glad that they don't call us doctors because that would be completely confusing to have doctors. So I'm more than happy with just being called Amanda, and that is totally fine. But I think that, one of the problems I have with lawyers in general is they like to hoard information. They like to say, I am the expert. I know all the answers. You come to me, my pretty, and I will tell you what to do. We got to stop that. We got to have a community where we all help each other and we share. I give so much free advice away, and it never has hurt me, ever. To give things away means you get triple fold back. So we have to help each other. Especially with female physicians, like it's a tough world. And if we can't crawl in that space together and be in the trenches together, then we're never going to get through the war. So you really have to make sure that you have a team that you can say, I'm going to help you with this and you're going to help with that. And we can give each other advice and we can motivate each other through this really hard world of healthcare to where we feel like we have a tribe. And at least women recognize that. We've had quilting bees, we've had guilds, we've had women that know that they have to have a pack. Sometimes men feel they need to do it all alone. And we have to remind them too, no, you need a community just as much. Everyone needs this community to where you feel like you have someone to ask questions. And that's why it's so great when I am a part of these smaller women physician groups, because they're like, you're part of the team. Like you're a missing link. We always had these legal questions and now we sort of generally know the answer. So I want all lawyers. I want to throw that out there to the universe that we have to see ourselves differently. We have to see ourselves as part of the community, not the experts that are on the hill, the guru that people need to go and pay money to hear the answers. So I think if we can change the tide, it'll only help the world.
Yeah. I mean, I think you must hear it all the time that physicians instantly recoil when they hear the word lawyer or attorney, and that our minds go to malpractice or I'm in trouble. That's the only interaction I would have with an attorney. And they're oftentimes distrustful. Not everybody lives in Texas. What advice would you have for people that kind of have this negative image in their mind and they do need help?
Well, just like with your patients, a lot of times I tell doctors it's a relationship that you have with a patient, especially if you're in the outpatient space. And if it's just this contentious, toxic, you don't feel it's going to click, then sometimes you do have to terminate a patient, right? Every once in a while. It's the same with your relationship with your lawyer. If you feel like you did with that first lawyer, that they're always kind of talking down to you or scaring you, then that is not the right relationship. You need someone who's going to be on your team. So if you have a lawyer that always says no to everything and seems to be angry with you for even asking, always saying caveats and long, confusing emails, then maybe just look around for someone different, because you need to have someone that you feel is you can call at any time and you can actually have a conversation with, like a real human. And so if you don't live in Texas, my first recommendation would be find a referral from someone that you directly know has worked with a person and they trust them and they like them. Or I might know someone, you can always call me, and I've given referrals all over the country. But you have to have someone that you trust, that you can call and be somewhat friendly with. And that's really important, because if you don't feel that this person's got your back, if you think they're just sucking money out of your pocket, which a lot of doctors do, they think, why would I call my lawyer? They bill by the hour. They're incentivized to talk to me and not give me the full truth so we can have another phone call. There's a lot of distrust. You have to find someone that you trust. And so you're going to look around for a while, then you do. You look around until you find that person. And you can go to your local county medical society, your insurance company, ask around who has a great reputation in this community as being a doctor's advocate, right? Someone that I don't have to see as an adversarial position, but like someone who's on my team. That's really important. And of course, take my classes, because I would love to see you in Guard My Practice. But to be all honesty, I feel like a Lone Ranger, but it's going to change. We're going to have to change this tide. I'm trying to drag a bunch of lawyers with me to say, guys, we have to get on the team with the physicians and teach them as they go, kind of like a general counsel does in a big medical group. We have to have their ear. It has to be part of the operational team. And if doctors can start to see that, right, they need a good accountant, they need a good lawyer, they need a good operator or clinic manager. These are all just integral parts of a medical practice. And we just have to start seeing it differently.
Yeah, I love that. It's really, we talk about at Revitalize is building your board of directors or advisors. You as the doctor are the CEO of that board, but certainly having an attorney that maybe is not permanently seated at the board, but they can come in as an advisor to help you with these really challenging situations that come up.
Well, and a lot of doctors think, oh, it's not that. It's like a template. I can pull it off the internet. And so what they do is they say, I need to hire a nurse practitioner. I'll just pull that off the internet. Or I need a HIPAA policy. I'll just grab something off the internet. It doesn't matter. They're all the same. It's fine. And to them, a contract is a contract. And they're all kind of the same thing. And so they might get something off LegalZoom, or they'll borrow something from their old practice. They'll just change the name and they'll just slap it together. And then lo and behold, the non-compete isn't there, or something fails, there's no termination provision. Like all these things fall apart because they just have no understanding of what they really need. The first thing to really do as a doctor is to say, what do I need? Do I need to negotiate a better contract for myself if I work for a group? Do I need to have a stronger infrastructure? What is the setback here? What's holding me back? What is the thing that I need to fix? And then really take an assessment of your practice and see where the holes are, and then get legal help to kind of clean it up. Because you can't just grab things up. It's just exactly the same as a patient who says, I have these 3 symptoms. I'm going to go to Google or WebMD and I'm just going to figure it out. I'm going to diagnose myself, because how hard can it be? And then you just get in this tailspin and you're taking high doses of vitamins and trying to flesh it out with watermelon juice because you have no idea. And so a lot of times it's like, doctors, don't pull stuff from the internet and think you're fine. Just because it says the word contract on it doesn't necessarily even mean it's a binding legal agreement. So you really have to be careful before you just take things and slap them together, because it's not really going to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think before we started recording, you used also the analogy of preventative medicine. I mean, when something blows up into like a situation that you're having a dispute with an employee, the myriad of other things that come up, boy, if you had just invested in some prevention, you could save so much. I mean, even beyond the money, what I think about a lot with these potential legal issues is the money is one thing. You can almost always make more of it. It's the psychological, emotional burden that these situations could create. And it wouldn't even just end with me. So if I get sued, I've told my husband, Chris, this many times, if that happens or when it happens, it's not just affecting me, it will affect us. It will affect my time, which will affect our dynamic. And that's what scares me more than the financial end.
Absolutely. If doctors can realize money is just money, it's necessary, but it's not the end all. A negative legal issue affects you deeply. I don't think that doctors realize how those things take such a deep toll on you emotionally, physically. When your office staff is all ripped apart because of a firing that went wrong and there's rumors and there's all these things, that's toxic and it affects the morale. And there's so many things that can go wrong from that. So preventative medicine is important, but also you have to understand. And if I can leave you with this, if they remember anything, your lawyer does not have to be the hero of the story. They are just helpful for you. They don't have to be seen or heard. Like when you go to your lawyer, they can be a silent partner helping you strategize and get through a situation without anyone knowing they exist. Like ego has no place here. So let's say that you have a doctor that you hired into your group. You're a one-man shop and you hired another partner and you had all these great hopes and you think she's going to be a great member of the team and it turns out to be a total train wreck. And you're petrified. Your stomach hurts. You think, what did I do? I built this company from the ground up. Now I've got this toxic partner that is going to ruin my business and I have no idea where to turn. Call your lawyer in confidence. Figure out a strategy on how to make sure that you do documentation, that you get through this, that you can find a way to part ways. And the other person has to have no idea that your lawyer exists. Do you see what I mean? Like, I don't think people realize that this help is there under the table, that they can really go through and form strategies and have someone to talk to and operationalize things and really go through that process. It's not just about filing a lawsuit or calling your lawyer and having your lawyer barrel around in their Armani suits and be big shots. It's about the day-to-day hurdles where you go, I don't know how to handle this. And especially with an employee that maybe this is a total example. Maybe you have a litigious staff member who you think I can never fire them because they're going to sue me. They're going to come after me. They're going to try to rob me blind. I feel like I'm stuck with this person. You can call a lawyer and the lawyer can say, okay, we're going to start going through the process of documenting their poor behavior. When they show up late, when they come in, how do you document that? Practically speaking, how do you walk through that? How do you put a time limit on that? How long can you go before you finally give them notice that you're going to terminate them? And then your ducks are all in a row and you've got it so cleanly documented to where the minute you finally do fire that person, you're like, I'm done. I did it. I followed my lawyer's advice. I have all the documentation. I feel completely confident. If they come after me, I'm ready. That is liberating. That means you can sleep better at night, right? That means like, I know what I'm doing. I'm not just floundering around. So a lot of times when I say preventative, it's like, you don't realize how horrible it can be when you just figure it out yourself and you dig yourself into a big hole. And then if you do have a board complaint, if you do have an EEOC complaint, if you do have a contract dispute that goes poorly, then you're stuck and you have to literally crawl your way out. And that is a lot more expensive. Trust me. Because when I get a call from this doctor the other day, and he said, Amanda, I did not know I was signing something that was illegal. I'm an upstanding physician. I care very deeply about my patients. I'm into rehab. I want my patients to take care of themselves. And when I signed this arrangement with this local rehab facility, I thought it was something moral and helpful for the world. And they needed my prescriptions for these patients to be able to go get the rehab that they needed. And I'm passionate about that. Little did he know that it was a scam, that they were using him for his NPI number, that this rehab facility was a con job. And when he had to get out of it, it was ridiculously expensive and heartbreaking. And so just having someone early on that can say, can you review this? Because it maybe isn't correct or smells funny or something might be wrong about it. To be able to flush that away early would have caused a lot more peace than having to go through the unwinding of a bad deal.
Yeah. Yeah, this is so important. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you're doing. We often feel so alone as doctors, and to know that we've got an attorney advocate like you means a lot. I'm guessing that there's a few of our listeners that are really fired up and they're excited to connect with you. How can they learn more?
Well, go to guardmypractice.com. You can always send me an email, get on my email list, shoot me a note. I love hearing from people saying, hey, you know what I really want to hear you talk about is X. The biggest stressor of my life is this. Do you have any way to address that? I am here to answer those questions. So if your listeners have questions, I am an open door. They can always send me an email or sign up for one of my courses. I often have discounts. I don't want money to be the barrier for you to get this education. So I want to be able to offer a discount to your listeners, which we'll put later in the notes, in the show notes or something. But I want to be able to help these doctors get the knowledge that they need. It's my second act. It's like lawyering is good, but this is a way to really change the world. And so I'm really excited about it. And I want you to know that you aren't alone. I hear that. Like, you have no idea how much I hear that. I feel so alone. I've never had anyone that I can turn to and ask these things. And I didn't know you people existed. Like you said, I thought lawyers were all out to get us. And that's not true. And so you need to know that there's someone by your side in every corner of this world.
Oh, it's such an important message. Well, thank you. And I hope that this is the first of several times that we'll have you back on the podcast. I'm already thinking about maybe our listeners could send in some questions and maybe we could do a future episode with their questions.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks for listening to The Revitalizing Doctor, a project of Revitalize Women Physician Circle. Our mission is to connect women physicians and allies through innovative, value-based coaching methods that align trust, support, accountability, and skill development to ignite the courage and clarity necessary to take bold actions, create change, and thrive. If you're interested in working with us, check out our website at peoplealwayshcc.com/revitalize or email us at revitalizemm.info@gmail.com. This podcast represents the views of our host and guest. It does not reflect the views of any institution we work for or with.
Hi, it's Dr. Risa E. Lewis, dropping in to tell you about a book that Dr. Adara Landry and I wrote. It's called Microskills, Small Actions, Big Impact. It's a business self-help book coming in 2024 by HarperCollins. Pre-order now. Microskills, Small Actions, Big Impact, wherever you buy your books.